Good evening and welcome to the February 15th meeting of the governing body. I call this meeting to order. If you will give your attention to Councilman Lesser, who will introduce for our invocation this evening. Stand as you are able and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would at this time I like them all, but like to introduce my favorite Topeka Police Department chaplain, Ms. Champagne Lloyd, to address us, to give the invocation for tonight's meeting.
Hello to all. Thank you so much for your service and your brain power. God be with us tonight. So let's pray. Dear God, please, Lord, first I have to thank you for these men and women who are doing no small feat, Lord, to manage people, and what goes on in people's life. What a hard job that is. And not only that, to then try to do it in unity from all different perspectives. And so I ask that you give them all uncommon wisdom. I ask for every appointment, every decision, every vote that needs to be made tonight. I ask that it is made under a unifying spirit to what's going to best help this community that they are managing for us. I ask that you also watch over the meeting, give it peace, and I ask that you just sit with them and know that there is a community that does support them in this thankless job sometimes, but they are appreciated. Blessings to them. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Champagne.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Councilmembers Hiller. Here. Valdivia Acala.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Emerson.
Here.
Hell.
Here.
Nager. Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
Lesser.
Barely. Here.
We have 9 present.
Thank you. Move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is a proclamation. And if I could have Leslie Floranges from the Tender Loving Care and Grace Canton and I think Ari Grice from Helping Hands join me up here.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you, sir. Hello, Grace Clinton.
A proclamation by the mayor. Whereas domestic animals have provided companionship to people throughout history, and today companion animals offer affection and an improved sense of well-being to thousands of Kansans, and whereas spaying or neutering pets promises the health of companion animals, and spaying and neutering has been shown to significantly reduce pet overpopulation, and whereas each year hundreds of thousands of healthy, adoptable pet cats and dogs are euthanized because of lack of resources to care for them, and whereas spaying and neutering also helps to eliminate or decrease several pet health problems that can be difficult or expensive to treat. And whereas all domestic animals of Kansas deserve loving homes and proper care throughout their lifetime. Now, whereas the city of Topeka encourages all Kansans to learn about their options to spay and neuter their pets this month and encourages them to support their local animal shelters, rescue groups, and spay and neuter organizations that are leading the way in promoting and protecting animal welfare, while also joining in recognizing February 22nd, 2022 as World Spay Day. Now, therefore, I, Michael A. Padilla, Mayor of the City of Topeka, Kansas, do hereby proclaim February 22nd as Spay and Neuter Day, Spay and Neuter Awareness Month. Leslie, if you would like to make a comment or so, and then give you the mic to the other.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for recognizing this very important issue. You know, during the pandemic, so many of our friends, our furry friends, were adopted and given shelter. And what happens sometimes is that after that, when people go back to work or they go and travel, they recognize that it's a big responsibility, and sometimes they unfortunately have to give them up. So, you know, having shelters for pets is very important, making sure that they're spayed and neutered so that we reduce that population of pets that are not able to come into someone's home and be loved and taken care of is absolutely important. Thank God for the Helping Hands Humane Society here in Topeka for all the work that they do, because this is very important to make sure that people know where they can go when they can't any longer take care of their pets. So this is a wonderful day for the mayor and for the town of Topeka to recognize the importance of spay and neuter and the importance of shelters like the Helping Hands Humane Society. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Leslie.
Hello. On behalf of Helping Hands Humane Society, we want to say a huge thank you, not only to Mayor Padilla, but to all of you who have made this happen. Spaying and neutering is obviously something that's very near and dear to the heart of us at Helping Hands Humane Society, since pet overpopulation is a very real issue, especially here in our community. We believe in spaying and neutering, and we sterilize all pets before they go up for adoption, so that we are placing animals back into the community who are already spayed and neutered to try and reduce the overpopulation in Topeka. And we also are offering a new option to people in the area with our low-cost spay-neuter clinic that'll be open later this year as a service to the disenfranchised in our area. So we thank you for this. It's a very big issue for us.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move on now to item number 3 on the agenda, if the clerk would read, please.
Item 3A is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Carol Roberts to the Topeka Human Relations Commission to fill an unexpired term ending February 28, 2024.
Do I have a motion for appointment from Councilman Dobler? And a second from Councilman Emerson. If you would call the roll vote, please.
Councilmember Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser.
Yes.
We have 8 voting yes.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts isn't with us, but if she is watching via Zoom, I would like to thank her for stepping up and again serving in this capacity. And if we could give her a round of applause in her absence, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 4, presentations, if the clerk would read.
The first presentation is Planning and Development 2021 Year-End Report.
Mr. City Manager?
At this point, I'll call the planning director up, Mr. Fylander, to present.
Bill.
Bill, yeah. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Your Honor, council members. Pleased to present our department's annual report. I was with you presenting the third quarter a few months ago. Not a lot has changed, but we'll show you where we ended up with. We like to show some of the development activity through the lens of our permit trends. So we'll have a lot of information to share, so let's get started. First off, you see the total building permit count for the year was at 522. That is a tick above where it was the year before. More importantly, it's about 10% higher than our 5-year average. So all in all, that's definitely heading in the right direction in terms of our development activity. What is really heading in the right direction would be our housing unit count. We permitted 394 last year. That was up from 293 the year before. If you take the last 2 years of total housing units permitted, it exceeds the previous 5 years combined. So the last 2 years, that red line there is showing you quite the spike over the last 2 years, which is really, really important, as you know. If you break that down a little bit more and say, well, what type of units were created or permitted, you see that we're very high in multifamily unit counts, 75% last year and 67% the year before. That contrasts with the previous decade where we were down in the 40 percentile for multifamily. That's really important. We kind of tailed off with our multifamily production the last decade. So we are denser, more compact. That's really good for on the same footprint to provide more cost-efficient service in the same footprint with more people. And then similar showing here when you look at the concentration of units within the county, the city the last 2 years, largely because of those housing unit upticks. We're at 75% of all units are in the city, permitted in the city last year, 72% the year before. So those last 2 years, again, showing a much stronger than the previous 10 years, which we were below 50% most of those years. So that's a good sign for the city. And where are those happening? This map hasn't changed a whole lot since I showed it to you last time. This is where the concentrations of development are happening. The green dots show you the subdivisions where the new units were happening and the project sites. I'll just point out, for instance, number 4 on there down at Topeka, South Topeka and 45th. That's Horseshoe Bend. That had the most units permitted, 23 for subdivision. Wheatfield Village was the highest project at 173 units permitted. And then the orange dots just indicate, again, where those new subdivisions were approved last year. There was almost 200 new lots approved for single and two-family development last year, which is really important because that adds another couple years of inventory to our vacant lot count for single and two-family. So we have about 5.6 years of inventory for single and two-family, and hopefully another 2 years worth of lots will be coming online soon with those new subdivisions. Okay, pivoting over to the commercial side of things, you can see there we did 186 commercial permits last year, which was an uptick from the previous year. However, we're still not back to our pre-COVID levels, pre-COVID year levels. We're about 5% below our commercial permit range over the last 5 years. When you look at all permits together and the construction value that's created through those permits, we were at 185 million last year, a slight drop from a very high previous year, but overall 10% higher over our 5-year average. Those are really driven by some large projects. When you get those in year to year, Walmart was one of those the last couple of years. It showed very high. In fact, I think it made up most of the permit value last year, to be quite honest. The top projects, value-wise, did not change from the third quarter. You still had Wheatfield Village, the Hills Minor Ingredient Handling Yard, Cedarhurst, the Assisted Living at 17th and Urish, and then Washburn School of Law. We're all in the top 5. And then we kind of round out the top 10 there, as you can see. I won't go over all of those. But not any change in the fourth quarter from the third quarter. Okay, the next 3 slides are comparisons to other cities or neighbors. I think this was a request from the last report that we did. So what we did is we went out and looked at Manhattan, Lawrence, and Wyandotte, and compared those, at least those permit information to ours. There's a little bit of apples and oranges going on here with Wyandotte, as we figured out later. They're the gray bar here, so when you look at the far left chart for total residential permits, they're way, way high. They count a lot more things than we do in our residential permits, so they're about 40% of what they're showing, and if you compare apples to apples. So I think Lawrence actually, when all things equal, is actually in first position for total residential permits. Probably a truer apples to apples count would be looking at housing units. Those housing units there on the second from the far right. You can see Wyandotte is a little bit over 500. We're in third position. Lawrence is at 441. We're at 394. And I would say that our 394, that's the most units we've done since the recession in a permitted year. So that is the residential side, and then on the commercial side, you can see Topeka there in yellow. We're in first position in terms of the number of commercial permits, with Lawrence followed by Wyandotte and Manhattan. And then all combined permits, when you look at that construction value for permitted, again, I'm not sure Wyandotte is apples to apples here, but they're almost doubling in permit value from our total, which is a little hard to believe since they're not as high in their commercial permits. But nonetheless, we're showing in third position in terms of overall value from what we were given. Last couple of things. We also want to report back kind of our metric and our permit review times. We like to do this at the end of the year as we track these. We tracked it a little different this year. Normally we would come to you and we look at from the beginning of the permit application to the time it was approved, a certain number of days. But within those number of days are staff reviews, and then there's days staff is waiting on responses back from the applicant. So we were able to finally figure out a way to measure our initial reviews. Those are when it first comes in. Those are usually the longer reviews. It's the first time we get a chance to have all the functions look at it. We're averaging 7 work days to complete those reviews. Our goal is to have everybody get those done within 10 work days. And then on the right side of the slide there, you see the waiting on response reviews. On average, again, we're looking at 20 work days to complete, meaning 20 work days to receive responses. So the bottom line is, from the beginning of the application to the approval, about 25% is in our court waiting on staff review. The last thing I wanted to touch on when we do these reports, sort of a highlight of a housing service program. I'll do that next time. This time we had a customer satisfaction survey at the end of the year that seemed more appropriate to report back on that. And we're very pleased with what we found. These are the customers we serve that go out with housing rehabilitation projects. Very high satisfaction rate, 96% interaction with our housing service staff, 87% on the work performed by the contractors, and then 91% the overall process. So as nice as those are to see, I think even nicer, or I guess more meaningful, are the comments that we've received. They really touch home for, explains why we do what we do. And Corey Wright and her team, I'm not going to read these, but you can kind of get a sense that people don't have a lot of places to go to get these services. And providing them is in keeping people in their houses and improving their quality of life is extremely meaningful for the customer, extremely meaningful for our staff to deliver. So I'm very proud of her and her team in these results. I will wrap up there, and if you need to get more information, Google DGM Reports Topeka, and you'll find all of those permit trends by month for the last few years. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Mr. Finder? Thank you, Bill, and compliments. I appreciate you putting in those statements from the public. It's good to hear their words rather than us praising ourselves. I think that's appreciated, so exactly. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Next presentation, if you would read, Kirk.
City of Topeka financial update.
Mr. City Manager.
At this time, I'll call Mr. Steve Wade, Director of Finance, forward to address this.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, governing body. We've got a two-part presentation tonight. First part, as required by charter ordinance, we're to give you an update on the 2021 financials. They're not much different than what we gave to you in December. We expected revenues to exceed budget by $3 million. We are at a preliminary close right now. We're still expecting that $3 million to hold. We thought that expenses would be under by $3.5 million. We've had a couple of things that have hit us here as we've been trying to close. One is we had the snow event that took place on December 31. Second thing is we've had some unexpected expenses tied to the closing of some capital projects. Those two things combined get us down to where we think we're going to be about a $3 million under budget as opposed to $3.5 million. I can stand for any questions on that before I turn it over to our Senior Grants Administrator.
Any questions for Mr. Wade? Seeing none, you would proceed.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd like to reintroduce to you Kalea Paoli. Is it close? No, I blew it again.
and you've been practicing.
I have been practicing.
You practiced it with me
I
this
did. Thank you very
afternoon.
much.
I would like to thank you, Mr. Wad.
There you go. Maybe that's
I knew that was coming. Thank you for being here tonight. And would you correctly pronounce your
Yes.
name so it will be imprinted in Mr. Wade's mind?
Good evening, Mayor, Governing Body. My name is Kalea Paoli, Princess Leia with a K, like Powell and ravioli. That's what I tell people to make it easy enough. So I'm the Senior Grants Program Administrator. I've been in Topeka for about 17 days, so I'm still new, still trying to figure out the area. I just finished unpacking my apartment like 2 days ago, so I'm still trying to figure things out. So a little bit about my background. I am from Nephi, Utah. It's a small town. It's about 90 miles south of Salt Lake. I have a bachelor's degree from Southern Virginia University in business management. And after I graduated from SVU, I went back home and I worked as an intern for the city of Nephi. Part of my duties were to work as a recreation grant writer for the rec department. During that time, I was able to get the city the Good Sports Recreation Grant, and it's a grant that lasts 3 years, so there's still a year and a half left on it, and it's valued at about $60,000. Basically, the city is given a catalog of like leftover sporting equipment from
like Nike and other organizations, and they order the equipment they need, and they'll use that for their own supply, like soccer balls, baseballs, or they will order socks and things like that for families who can't afford it. So after that, I attended graduate school at Arizona. So that's why last week Stu said I was from Arizona. I went to school there. That's where I was last. I spent the summer working for the city of Casa Grande as an intern. And then this past fall, I was working with the County Supervisors Association, which is, they don't like to be called lobbyists, but that's essentially what they are. Their job is to lobby on behalf of the Arizona counties at the state legislature. In December, I graduated with my master's in public administration and my master's in legal studies. I applied for the internship program that you have here. My career advisor sent us a notification that Topeka was hiring. So I actually did not apply for this position and got a call back from the finance department saying, hey, this opened sooner. We think you might be a good fit for this. So that's how I got here. So at the moment, I'm enrolled in a grant writing class with the community college. And again, I'm new to the area, so if you have any feedback for me, any grants you hear about anything, I'm sure we can get my email out to you. I don't have time to do a PowerPoint, so, but it's gkpowley@topeka.org. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Well, and thank you and welcome to Topeka.
Thank you.
I'm glad you chose us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Lesser.
I do a lot of business with lots of nonprofits. If you would shoot me an email tomorrow.
Yeah.
I would love to help you up, hook you up with some of those peers in those groups or in those organizations that I'm sure would be helpful for you. Some really good people. So if you'd like for me to do that, please shoot me an email tomorrow, and I'd love to see how I can do to help you to succeed. And then I also, since this was the second time, I think I do speak for the entire council that you do have permission to call him Mr. Wad as long as you're here in Topeka.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, and welcome to Topeka as well. I think it'd be beneficial to send your contact information to all the council members.
Okay.
So we can see your name and we can study your name and we don't have to go to Mr. Watt. So we're glad to have you. Welcome.
Absolutely, will do. And I do know on Saturday there was a request of an update. Just let me know how often and what format, and I'll be sure to get that to you. So.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you.
if I could brag on her for a quick second.
Certainly.
$97 million and 20 grant applications for Spark that Kalea has led that effort through a team to get done and ready to go. $97 million, 20 grant applications.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Feel free to also get hold of everybody for instance, their favorite restaurant recommendation. Then you can rate them and see how good we are at cooking.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5 on the agenda, if the clerk would read.
Item 5A is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller approving a special event known as the 2022 St. Patrick's Day Parade Party. Item B is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller granting the Celtic Fox an exception to the provisions of the City of Topeka Code Section 9.45.150 concerning noise prohibitions. Item C is approval of a workers' compensation claim settlement in the amount of $50,000 to resolve the claim on a full and final basis for a work-related injury sustained by an employee while engaged in normal work activities. Item D is approval of a utilities contract for professional engineering services between the City of Topeka and Bartlett and West, Inc. to aid in the city in addressing renewable natural gas facility operations and maintenance. Item E are the minutes of the regular meeting of February 8th, 2022. And item F, there are no applications.
Okay, you've heard the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve by Councilwoman Hiller and a second by Councilman Kell. When you're ready, Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Councilmembers Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Dobler,
Once again, I'll have to abstain.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmember Heller.
Yes.
We have 8 voting yes and 1 abstention. Motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to item number 6 on the agenda, if the clerk could read.
Item 6A is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William Cochran concerning the adoption of the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code for commercial buildings by adding Chapter 14.85 to the Topeka Municipal Code.
Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, governing body, this is an action item, and we heard the testimony last week referenced code, and so this will be an action item for vote, and it requires 6 governing bodies to pass. Yes votes.
Okay, as a reminder, as the city manager said, we heard testimony at the last meeting. Yeah, as an action item this evening, is there a preference by the body?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval.
Motion to approve by Councilman Emerson, second by Deputy Mayor Duncan. Any discussion? Seeing none, if you would call the vote, please.
Councilmembers Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Heller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes.
Okay, action item B, if the clerk would read.
Item 6B is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William Cochran concerning the adoption of the 2021 International Existing Building Code and repeal of the Uniform Code for Building Conservation by amending Chapter 14.25 of the Topeka Municipal Code.
Mr. City Manager.
Again, Mayor, governing body, we heard testimony last week reference this. Again, this requires 6 yes votes by the governing body to pass.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the body? Move to approve by Councilman Dobler, second by Councilman Emerson. Any discussion? Okay, would you call the vote, please?
Councilmembers Emerson,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Heller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes, the motion carries.
Thank you. Item 6C.
Item C is acceptance of land dedications in the final plat for Meadow Lark Square subdivision number 7, located approximately a fourth a mile north of Northwest 46th Street on the west side of Button Road, all being within unincorporated Shawnee County, Kansas, and contained in the city's 3-mile extraterritorial jurisdiction.
Okay, at this point, there is an opportunity for public comment on this particular item. Is there anyone that has either previously signed up or anybody in the room that would like to make public comment on this? Okay, seeing none, what is the pleasure of the body? Motion to approve by Councilman Emerson,
Second.
second by Councilman Kell. Sorry, Mike. If you, any discussion at all on the item? Okay, if you would call the roll, please.
Council members Kell,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes. The motion carries.
Thank you. If we can move to item 6D, if the clerk would read.
Item D is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William Cochran amending the district map referred to and made a part of zoning ordinances by section 18.50.050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for amendment of the planned unit development master plan for the College Hill redevelopment subdivision to allow for continued operation of a dog park as an interim use on vacant property located at 1423 Southwest Lane Street.
Okay. We've heard the reading of the item. What is the pleasure of the body?
Move to approve.
Have a motion to approve by Councilwoman Hiller. A second by Deputy Mayor Duncan. Before we vote, I want to remind the members of the governing body that we have voting options on this. 3 of them. We vote to approve the commission's recommendation. That will take 6 votes. Secondly, to reject or change the commission's recommendation, which will take 7 votes. 3, to remand to the commission with direction, 6 votes. I also have to read the ex parte communications and admonition. Ex parte communication is required to be disclosed prior to proceeding with the vote. Each member of the governing body who has engaged in ex parte communication with any individual, either in favor or against the matter being considered, must state that the communication occurred and indicate that even in light of having engaged in the communication, they were able to fairly, objectively, and impartially consider the measure based only on the evidence provided on the record. The record includes the Planning Commission minutes, the staff report, and its attachments, public comments made during the Planning Commission hearing, and similar relevant information related to that matter. So I ask now for any governing body to advise us of any ex parte communications that they've had in this matter. Councilman Dobler.
I don't know if Henry McClure is ex parte, but he certainly communicated by email. No other communication. I can make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
I think we all got that email, so I would just chime in with the same comments as my colleague. No conversation, other.
I would ask then that, considering that everyone got the email, if anyone feels that after they've received that email, if they cannot make a fair and objective decision on this, please advise. Okay, I see nothing. Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, in addition to the email from Mr. McClure, I did talk to a resident of the property. Nevertheless, I can make an impartial decision. Thank you.
Mike's got his hand.
Pardon, who is it?
Mr. L.
Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had reviewed all the information. I'll go ahead and take the opportunity and say I did get the email, no other communication. I did have reviewed all the information, as well as went back and looked at some of my notes from way back when we actually had this come through us the first time. I will be a hard no on this. I don't believe it fits the council's agenda in regards to infill housing. My recollection was we were given this initial exception with the understanding that at the end of that, the expectation was there would be development that took place that then got on the property tax rolls, et cetera, or at the very least, depending on the format, provided some affordable housing for the community. I do not see a nice parcel of land right there with other development around it being as beneficial, being a dog park to meet those expectations. I don't ever remember seeing a dog park as one of the goals of the city council. I do remember affordable housing. I do remember infill building, and based on those reasons, I'm a hard no on extending this.
Thank you. Further comment from the council? Councilman Dobler.
Could you explain exactly what we're voting on right now?
Thank you, and I was going to ask the clerk to make sure, or the city attorney, as we proceed with the vote, do we vote on each option, or?
The current motion on the floor is to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation by adopting the ordinance.
And by approving that,
Then you would be allowing the dog park. A substitute motion is in order as well.
okay. So the Councilman Hiller.
I think, given Councilman Lesser's comments, it would be helpful to have the city attorney or planning
Fine.
director identify where it stands in terms of that floating requirement that housing be built on that tract.
Oh, sure. Councilwoman Hiller. Let me pull up the pictures. I like pictures. So the land there that is being used for the dog park now, that was approved 3 years ago, was an additional use added to the PUD, which was from 2006. So the dog park is an additional use in addition to the 8 townhouses that are entitled or approved for use there. That's where we stand now, is that the zoning gives the owner the right to do townhomes. If you approve this, we give them the right to use it for a dog park another 3 years. It does not compel, if you approve this, it doesn't compel the owner, or I should say, if you don't approve it, doesn't compel the owner to build the townhomes or anything for that matter, or even the dog park for that matter. But they did. It just gives them the entitlement to do that. So, is that get at what
Well,
you're
if you
asking?
could keep going with
Okay.
that, so that this is a time-limited 3-year period. So at the end of the 3 years, what happens?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Horse to water. At the end of 3 years, then if you approve this, then they would, if they want to continue it after 3 years, they'd have to come back again to you and doing the same process, go to the Planning Commission with another major amendment to the PUD to get another 3 years. So, so you're actually tonight are acting on the exact same proposal you acted on 3 years ago, which is to extend it for 3 years, hard stop, come back to you if you want to go more than 3 years.
But if then, in 3 years, and apparently that 3 years starts tonight, not September when it was up before, but if at the end of that 3 years, that permit to have the dog park expires, correct?
Correct.
So it reverts then to that responsibility to build.
It just removes the dog park as an allowed use.
Right, I mean, it still
Yeah.
doesn't make those.
Correct. Yep.
Those, the
Yep.
construction
Cease
happen.
operation of the dog park, yeah, at that point.
So if the council, whatever, if their market was more amenable at that time, or occupancy in the area, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
Council still couldn't make him do it, is that what you're saying?
not
would
through
lose the dog park
zoning.
option.
Sorry,
Okay.
excuse me, talk over you. Not through zoning, it would have to be a different path. Zoning is just an entitlement to do something. It doesn't force anybody to do anything. If they do a use as approved through zoning, there are conditions you have to do it. You do approve those, so it is proactive in that way, but it does not compel anybody anywhere on any parcel to build something that the zoning allows.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Emerson?
Thank you, Mayor. A question for Ms. Stanley, our city attorney. One of the golden factors that we're supposed to weigh in this decision is the suitability of the property for the uses to which it is restricted. My reading of that is we're saying that being restricted only to doing townhomes is a bad restriction on it, correct? It's too restrictive.
You are saying that you believe the use of a dog park is an appropriate use at this time to use for this piece of land.
But it's saying the suitability of the property for its uses to which it was restricted. So, in other words, right now, it's not allowed to be a dog park. And we have to find that is an unreasonable restriction, correct?
It's one of the factors that the
sure.
Planning Commission reviewed was whether or not what it's currently zoned as is a suitable use to be restricted to only that.
Okay.
So yes. Okay. And yes, I will happily let you try.
Unfortunately, I've had this question in the past on many things. That particular factor about the suitability on removal of the restrictions, usually you get a zoning where you're removing an old restriction and placing a new, basically, restriction on the land. Here, you're not really removing anything, you're just adding. And so that's a little funky to read, in the traditional way that we read it. Normally, you're going from a residential to commercial, or office to residential, whatever it is. You're really removing restrictions or entitlements. In this case, you're still leaving the possibility to do the townhomes on. So,
but absent this exception that we're going to vote on, is the dog park an allowed use under the original PUD? Under the
original PUD, under the current PUD, it is an allowed use.
Is that true? Because I thought it expired right in September.
Well, right.
So the current PUD reverts to the old one, right? Which
true.
Does not allow, technically it's not in compliance right now.
Technically, yes. And so it'll hinge on whatever you decide tonight, yes.
Right. So right now, the dog park is not an allowable use under the PUD. That's in effect right now.
Technically speaking, that is correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I will just say, just to, based on my reading of the golden factors, like Mr. Lesser, I'm not in favor of extending this. I was on the fence, frankly, 3 years ago, and I would not have voted yes 3 years ago if I'd have known they wanted to do it for 6 years. So, based on my reading of the golden factors and my understanding of them, I'm a no also on this. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Mr. Finder, I have a couple more questions. First, Councilman Kell, and then Deputy Mayor Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, this is for a question from Ms. Stanley. By voting on this, does this actually open up the city for any liability if there's a dog attack by attacking another dog or attacking, let's say, a child? By allowing this to be there, do we open up ourselves to liability? Okay.
No, we do not.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, a small caveat. In no way, form, or fashion do I want to look like I'm standing up for the current owner of this property, who I clearly have some issues with, which we've discussed previously and we'll probably discuss in the future. But I believe the current owner is the third owner of this property, to my knowledge, since it was developed originally. And in all the years that was done, not a single one of those people took time or has developed this property as was originally envisioned under the master plan. Also, all of those three owners never, at any point in time, really ever fully realized what that should be. I don't believe there was ever or has ever been 100% occupancy of the business portion of those properties. And today, I think it's darn near nil with a few very slim exceptions. I understand the frustration because I feel it, but I feel like if we don't continue to allow this, Are we then ready to say as a body, we are going to step up our pressure and look at all of our options to force the current owner to actually meet the master plan that's in place? Because if that's our commitment, I'm on board. Let's do that. But if not, what I see then is the fence comes down, the property stays green, and people still may use it as a de facto doggy park who live in those apartments, whereas now they're finding some use for it. And that's kind of the back and forth I have had. So I'm going to vote yes tonight because there's no other alternative in front of us or mechanism we've discussed to push forward to force the current owner to do what we want them to do with it. So if we have that, great. Otherwise, I just feel like a yes vote is for the best for that neighborhood to keep it as opposed to just becoming an empty lot again. Thank you, Mayor.
Further comment? Councilman Lesser.
I understand where you're coming from, Spencer. I would only counter with, I think the first step possibly in moving toward other actions to make this a viable, sustainable property is proceeding with this. Without doing this, I think it makes it more difficult for us to possibly do look into other actions that we have to try to fulfill what the goal of this governing body set forth as far as infill housing, low-income housing, et cetera. That would be the only thing. I'm not in disagreement with you. You and I agree more than we disagree. I just say I see this as a first step down exactly what you said.
Thank you. Further comment? Councilwoman Hiller.
Since it's in my district and I made the motion, I will just piggyback on Deputy Mayor Duncan's position. All of us would like to see it developed, I suspect, but what we need is the best use for it right now. And if allowing that extra use has meant that it's fenced nicely and mowed and cared for, that works for me. And so it was with that, said a little differently than you did, that I went ahead and made that motion. I too have had mixed feelings, but that's, I think, the best allowance right now for everyone concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may speak to it, I definitely agree with Deputy Mayor's assertion that we should make it clear that we're going to work towards some improvement on that property. I remember being on the council when this was brought forward then, and I voted no for it then because I thought, to me, it was just a stall tactic. There was no effort to really present any plan to this body, and it was just a way to keep putting this off. And for me, I'm not appreciative of that effort, so I would not support allowing it to continue and remain, so I'll be a no vote on it as well. So, but I do appreciate what you're saying, Deputy Mayor. I think it's important that we do develop that area there. But as long as we keep it as a dog park, I don't think anybody's going to make any more effort than they have now. Maybe they will in the future. And I appreciate the comments here because I know it's been a back and forth. Councilman Lesser.
I'll also add, I was there too as well, and the information we got was the plan was to continue on with a property, but as you said, they needed some time. Interestingly enough, you do bring up now, but we're not just talking about now. If we do this, we're talking about another 3 years. And interestingly enough, interest rates at the lowest point we've seen in long time did not spur any development by this owner for that property. So as things start to head the other direction with inflation and whatnot, I venture to guess there's not going to be a mad rush to get rid of a dog park. So I see this all as a chess game. That being the case, like I said, having the knowledge of when it came before us the first time, shame on me. if I fall for it again, just as you said, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Question, Bill. I think this is probably, having it as a dog park today does not stop them from a week from now saying we've decided to build something there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Maybe a doghouse.
Maybe a doghouse. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I'll just reiterate, I vote yes, I won't harp on it, that I get everyone's position, but then I hope we have a discussion soon about what we're going to do to make it become developed. That's all I would request of my colleagues. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller?
Thank you. I would just request again that we've had that discussion, and if we can't make it happen, at least we have a dog park. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk would call the roll for a vote.
Councilmembers Dobler,
No.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
No.
Mayor Padilla,
No.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes?
Valdivia Akala, Ortiz,
No.
Emerson,
No.
and Kell.
No.
We have 7 voting no.
So now that that motion failed, Mr. Mayor, you either need to make a new motion to deny the approval of the ordinance, which requires 7 votes, or remand it back to the Planning Commission, which requires 6 votes.
Could you read that again so that I can ask
Your
the body?
approval motion failed, so we do need an affirmative motion either to deny the approval of the ordinance, which is 7 votes, which is what just had, or make a motion to remand it to the Planning Commission, which is 6 votes. Either motion is in order at this time.
Okay. Hearing the city attorney, what is the pleasure of the body? Councilwoman Ortiz and then Councilman Emerson.
I'll make a motion to deny it.
We have a motion to reject or deny. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Emerson. Discussion? Councilman Emerson, did you want to add more?
No, Mayor. That was the motion I was going to make as well.
Any further discussion? Okay. Would the clerk call the roll for a vote, please?
Councilmembers Duncan,
No.
Yeah.
The motion is to deny the ordinance, yes.
Thanks, Spencer.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
No.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Dun. Pardon me.
Tie this turn early enough.
She wanted 10. Go for 10.
We have 7 voting yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, the motion passes. It's been rejected.
Correct.
Any further action to take on this?
No.
Thank you. Having taken care of all the action items, now we move to public comment. Something?
Noted it was before 7, that's all. Just looking at the clock.
We have 3 people signed up for public comment. Mr. Patrick Delap.
Howdy, I'm here tonight to talk about an issue that I'm concerned with. Last weekend, we had a fire. House caught on fire for, if I understand, the 5th time. We have an arsonist in Topeka, or several of them, and we're high off the scale of the number of fires we're having in this city because of arsonists. What I've gathered here is nationally how it's ranked. Right now, arson should be down about maybe the 5th cause at 4.5%. We're higher than that. Why? I really can't say because I just find out what houses catch on fire by the media. The media likes, well, they like something people are going to listen to. So they didn't put the little stuff on. They want something flashy. And this is it. So we have fairly good investigators, fire investigators. They know or have a hunch of who these suspects are, but people aren't willing to come forward. They're not willing to come forward because, well, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want them to know it was me. It's extended family. Well, they're dating one of my sons. Or worst case, they're afraid of retaliation, catching their house on fire, beating them up, vandalizing their property. And these are violent, dangerous people who do it. You can kill people. You really can. You can put them in hospitals or death. It's not fun stuff, gentlemen. I've been a victim before of arson. 12 arsons, one house. They lost the case in the district court because of the fact they couldn't afford a professional witness. They had one, he didn't show. Dude, let's stop it here. Let's start having people tell on other people. And how we're going to do that? You start offering a reward. We're not doing anything. We just want you to come forward and tell us about it. You start offering $5,000, $10,000 reward for the arrest and conviction of these arsonists. If more than one comes forward, fine, they can split it. But it's based upon arrest and conviction. We'll have people talking for that kind of money. $1,000, it's not going to happen. $1,000, you can get that scrapping for a month or selling plasma, things like this. Not enough money to take the risk of endangering themselves or endangering their own property for turning people in. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to somehow, somebody work on this and give that money to the fire department to start finding these people, convicting them, and putting them in jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Joseph Ledbetter.
Hey, governing body. I want to talk about the budgets as they're coming up. I've sent an email on this earlier, last week. I would like to at least have a discussion about doing the budgets maybe a little differently this year. And the model I was looking at and I'm interested in is the way the county breaks out its departments. And I know that I will typically testify on behalf of Parks and Rec, and we may have as many as 15 different departments come forward. And I'm thinking that, especially in the past, I think people would have loved to have commented more on public works. I think they might not want to do that as much now, but there's still people that might want to comment specifically about codes and their budget, and have this broken out where people can succinctly see it and understand it. I particularly would like to see a lot more scrutiny on utilities, and especially with the large amount of reserves they've got and the way they're falling behind on replacing water lines. Well, they really never even got started, actually, according to their own testimony. But I would like to see a lot more scrutiny on that part of the budget, and allow the public to comment on that. And so you might want to consider having a little bit more openings during the week where people could come up and speak on that one. Obviously publicize it well, so if people do want to show up for that kind of part of the budget, they could. I don't think it would hurt. I read a book, recently just talking about, public and how the public does so much better if the public has input, and how public entities do so much better. As a rule, if there's a lot more public input about how things are done, and we love to complain that people don't show up, but are we making all the parts known to the people that want to comment on different parts, and maybe they don't want to comment on the whole budget? I will tell you that it presents a problem when you come up and you're discussing the budget and you're limited to 4 minutes and it's about the whole budget. Well, I may not want to talk about the whole budget. I'm glad that you would not want me to as well, but it would be nice to break it out into different parts. And, you know, you could just try it. Another thing that I would like to see done a little differently is on the CIPs. We spent a lot of time over the last several years talking about 10 years out and 7 years out, and these are not set in stone. These are not the 10 Commandments. I would like to see a much closer horizon on these CIPs, you know, talking about the next 2 years and what are we really going to do. And you might get actual public input on things like that. They're really not going to talk to you about what's going on 10 years from now, just like some of you aren't going to be here in 10 years, and some of the public isn't going to want to talk in 10 years. So I'd like to see a much better scrutiny on what's close in time, out a couple of years, and how that would work. And I think you'd have a better process, and you'd be a lot better connected to what the end result is. So those are just my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we have Dr. Chris Deister. Did I pronounce that correctly? Or Deister?
That's rare.
Pardon?
That's rare.
Yes.
I appreciate that, Mayor. My name is Dr. Chris Deister, like I was introduced, and I've kind of feel like a long-time Topekan because basically I am, and I practiced dentistry here from 1979 to 97, at which time my sons were going to school out of state, so we moved to Ohio for 20 years, and I got back here to the city I love in 2018, and we bought a home here. I was so excited when I came back because now I had time to think about the city and this, you know, growing up and starting a school and starting this and doing that with my sons, I had no time to really pay attention to what goes on. And as I watched the ARPA meeting on Saturday on Zoom, I just thought we have a great city council here. And I so appreciate you all spending your Saturdays doing the things that nobody else wants to do, but everybody else expects to go right. And so many things have happened positively since I've been here, but I would say the streets to me were discouraging, and I thought, having worked in cement in high school, my first job with Dunn Construction Company, Kansas City, I did a lot of cement work, and I noticed that the streets looked the same kind of when I came back as when I left, and there's been effort put into them while I've been gone and before. And I looked at the flats, and I saw a perfectly valid, nice surface, and then all the cut lines were totally disintegrating. And I thought, that is odd. That doesn't happen with, it doesn't happen. So I called Brent Trout, and it took me a couple of days to meet him in front. He's a busy man, and I'm just a community volunteer and community advocate. I love this city. That's why we came back. But I said, I presented the problem to him, and I said, what I'm seeing here is not consistent with a grade that we ought to be using. And he said, well, you know, I'll get back with you. I will look into that. So about a month later, he called back. He's a busy man. I wasn't upset at all I was surprised that he did call back. And he said, well, Chris, I see that, is that 4 minutes?
No, you're fine.
Oh, thanks, Karen. Councilman Hiller. He said, you know what happened? I did some looking, and we got a substandard grade of Portland, of concrete, of mix. And I thought, that's discouraging. We have so many things to get done in this town that you all are trying to do and facilitate. And I thought, well, how did this happen? Because this is $1 million mistake. This is millions of dollars mistakes. And it made me wonder about where this mistake occurs. Is it because we just take low bids on things, which is a kind of a scuttlebutt thought in the community?
Dr. Deister, would you like more time?
I would, please.
How much time do you need?
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
So moved, Mayor.
A motion by Councilman Emerson, second by Councilman Dobler. All those in favor say aye.
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 So I just was wondering, did we ever try to go back on the companies that gave us this? Are we, I want to believe with all my heart that our new city manager is checking the engineering, and that the engineering department is going over these contracts such that we don't run into something like that. That's so basic as far as inspection, that that's my money and our money. And so I speak for the community, that's all. I'm not complaining about you all. I'm just saying, did we ever try to go back and recover? Or was the company involved, known by us and we didn't want to go back? And that would be a bad thing, because that doesn't matter. We should have gone back. And in the first place, we should have known. So I really appreciate that, and I don't want that to overshadow the fact that really appreciate y'all's work, and I really do. And watching that meeting was a joy, because y'all did well in that, and back and forth, and boy, there was differences of opinion, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Those are all that have signed up for public comment. Councilman
If I
Healy.
could make a comment, we have discussed the situation that Dr. Deister brought up in the past. I know we're going into CIP hearings, but either with a report from staff or just to refresh us all on about, that was a big issue in lots of projects for a while. I don't know if Dr. Deister's talking about something recent, but it would be good for all of us to have a small briefing if we could.
Thank you.
I didn't catch what you want a briefing on.
The issues with the poor concrete that we've had. I mean, we redid all of Clarion because there was crummy concrete there not many years ago for millions of dollars. We've had other joint problems and so on in different places in town. I think all of those projects were about the same age. But it would be insightful for council if that's okay to request. Thank you.
Thank you. You can take care of that for us, city manager? Gotcha. Okay. No further public comment, so announcements, if the clerk would read.
Mayor, I have no agenda for next week.
And nothing else to announce?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Okay, we'll move and allow and ask for our city council members. Oh, I'm sorry, city manager.
Just do announcements. We got another winter event moving our way, and the abatement process continues at White Lakes Ball.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Councilman Lesser.
Just because I want to thank Chief, is Chief Wheeler still there? Brian still there?
He's still in the room.
I just want to thank him for helping me set up the chaplain tonight. I did want to also make sure, since he does carry a weapon, that he does realize that there is no meeting next week, even though he tried to convince me there was. No meeting next week, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
I'm probably forgetting something important, but I don't have anything. Thank you.
Councilwoman Christina Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. Just about the snowstorm, I don't know if schools will be called off or whatever, but please keep your kids wrapped up. Everybody start out early. Be patient if things are slow with moving around. Take care of your pets. Check on your elders. Just wanted to wish everybody a belated Valentine's Day. Hope everybody got what they wanted and needed. Also, big rah-rah to my young grandson who made a magnificent three-point shot at the Topeka West game out of town the other day. And also, I would reiterate somewhat of what Mr. Delap said. We definitely have an issue with fires in this town. I don't know so much about the who knows what, who knows who, but I think that it's something that we definitely should be really concerned about, having ongoing concerns about how they just seem to keep happening. And the one that happened the other day that was so huge, the fear I know for everyone was that it was going to catch other houses on fire. So no answers, just something that, I think that we're all keeping an eye on and have deep concern with. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christina, you'll be happy to know 501 is out until next Tuesday. So we have parent-teacher conferences after tomorrow. And then 501 is taking a health day for not only teachers, but for all their staff. So kudos to them. I didn't get what I wanted for Valentine's Day because I don't know who didn't get a smoke detector. And so I'm still pushing for them. And it's amazing. I talked to Chief Duke, and today I think he said we were up to 97 smoke detectors that they have installed since January 1. So we've got work to do. And in your discussions, please ask, do you have a working smoke detector in your home? The key word is working. Neil, do you have a working smoke detector? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to somewhat respond to Dr. Deister, and certainly the city engineer can come up and give a much better explanation for that matter, Councilman Dobler. But I will tell you, the city takes a lot of pains on projects. When you pour concrete, they have a guy come out and they pour what's called test cylinders. And then they take them to a lab and they break those and make sure the concrete's it's the right mix, and it's breaking at the correct strength. So there's a lot of things to do. The other thing the city does is there's a one-year maintenance by state law. And I think it can be longer than that. There's some problems with bonding and stuff. As I understand it, it's hard for a bonding company to write a bond for 10 years. But one of the things the city does now is they have someone go out at 355 days or whatever, and they send a contract letter, and I've got some of them saying you need to fix, this is chipped, this is cracked, and we have responsibility to go out and fix it. So just the city, I think the city does a great job, frankly, as a contractor. I think they do too good a job sometimes of finding things. But nevertheless, it's the right thing to do for our citizens. So I appreciate it from this seat.
Thank you for the information. Councilman Kell.
Well, I kind of want to piggyback on your proclamation about spaying and neutering your pets. And we've heard it for years from Bob Barker and Drew Carey. And But the next step on that also is adoption and fostering and hospice care. There's a lot of joy having a pet, but also, looking at special needs animals is great. And my wife and I had a diabetic blind dog, and you couldn't tell it one bit by the way he acted, the way he did anything. So just make sure when you're looking for a pet, you look at the humane societies, the different charities that work with it, work with them, and then work with them to spay and neuter your animals, because that is very important. With a dog and a cat, rabbit can bring you a lot of love and joy in life, and problem is sometimes we have too many running around. So just make sure you take care of your animals so they can take care of you.
Councilman Dobler.
Mayor, I have absolutely no desire to talk about anything, so I will pass. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. It's the third Thursday of the month. Weather permitting, I will be at Fairlawn Plaza from 5:30 to 7, so you can come and harass me there, like you can every third Thursday. Second thing is, give blood. We continue to be in a crisis. I let them take some out of me a few weeks ago, and I'm already scheduled for my next one. If you don't know what that means and it scares the heck out of you, just call me. I'll go with you. It's pretty easy, I promise. Thirdly, I want to just thank some of our patrols today. We've had an abandoned vehicle in our district that had just been sitting there for a while, a little too close to a fire hydrant, so they were able to go out there and deal with that problem and get those wheels in motion. So I thank them for their attentiveness. The last thing is, obviously we just did the ARPA workshop, and everybody knows we finally put the money in our buckets, including the $10 million for the community portion. And I'm sure if you haven't already, some of us are already getting lots of questions about what that means. What I continue to tell folks is, I know this is hard, tell it to my 8-year-old all the time, be patient, be patient. We promise those conversations will happen in public. And I want to tell everyone, I guess the first part of that conversation will happen on March 1st. It's actually that afternoon of our next council meeting. Policy and Finance has a meeting scheduled where we will start to take our first crack at those applications, and then hopefully have a timeline we can sort of look at in that meeting and schedule some more meetings. So for all those interested in that process, it starts on March 1, and we'll be there at 1:30 in the afternoon for that meeting. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I have one announcement, but I need help from our Finance Director, Stephen Wad. If he could remind me of the final two dates for the budget, I would appreciate it.
We have one that is a week from, or this coming Monday, week from yesterday, and we have the wrap-up session is March the 10th.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. And I would encourage people who still maybe have not had a chance to partake in any of those Zoom discussions, if you'll forward your name to my office, I'll get them to Adam, and then they can be included with those Zoom links so that they can continue. Reports from Adam have been that they have been good interactive sessions, so I encourage the public to take a chance to sit in and take a look at how this process is conducted, feel a bit better about how we approach our work. So that's the only announcement I have, Deputy Mayor.
Just going to add to that, Mayor, all of those are on the City of Topeka's YouTube channel. So there's a shout out to our YouTube channel. You can go and watch those if you're interested.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it with our announcements. There is a need to have one executive session this evening. City Attorney, would you read, please?
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 30 minutes to discuss personal matters related to multiple city employees pursuant to KSA 754319B1. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers. The following staff may be needed to assist the governing body in its deliberation: interim city manager Cochran and any other staff he deems necessary.
We've heard the request for a need.
So moved, Mayor.
Have a motion and a motion from Councilman Emerson, second from Councilman Kell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We will recess into an executive session for no more than 30 minutes. We'll wait till the room clears.
I just watched this thing. Joe Theismann.
Are we on? Okay. In discussions with the governing body, it's necessary for us to extend our executive session to a second session of 15 minutes. So do I have a motion to extend?
I move to extend.
Okay. Moved by Councilman Kell, the second by Councilman Dobler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. We will recess into a 15-minute executive session.
You were saying.
Okay. Yep. Gotcha. Okay. We have continued our discussions. No action has been taken. There's no further action to come before this body. So I declare this meeting closed. We are adjourned.